Welcome everyone to an episode of the Old-Timers Comic Book Show, the show where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. You might be thinking, wow, the machine looks bright today with the sunshine going on. Surely to God you can't talk about football today if they're recording early. Go Dolphins at Kansas at Germany. Who'd have thunk it? Anyway, enough football talk. Let's bring on the guys. It's the Professor.
Hey, Johnny!
Whoa, hey! And
Hey!
of course, where would we be without the 13th Snuggle Bunny? I mean, the 13th Crusader himself.
Yo, why are you calling me so
Hey,
early, man?
Why do you call it? Why am I calling you so early?
I was still awake, man. I wasn't awake just yet.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not
Well,
just
in
playing.
that case,
I'm
I was
wide
going to
awake.
say, you better wake up because we're doing your book first. The theory for this show around is possessed heroes. There are some absolutely obvious ones we could have gone down. Yeah, Professor. Some of the obvious ones that we didn't choose.
I think there's a Scarlet Witch kind of story where she's mind controlled. It's coming from the Avengers. There's for some reason Ultron has the ability to mind control people, and he mind controlled Iron Man for a while, and
Wow.
the
know that.
Vision. Yeah,
Vision
there's
makes sense.
a couple of stories.
Cool.
But there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah, it is a fascinating trope. 13th, what is it about the idea that our heroes being controlled do we find so kind of appealing? Is it just a shock value, or is it?
I think so, and I think it's just a curveball to your normal run-of-the-mill stories where you can use it as an opportunity to cause turmoil from hero to hero, and I think that's where the appeal is mostly.
Let's not forget Puppet Master.
Yep.
When in prep for the show, I said I'm sure Professor X has done some shady stuff, and I think that's a fair shout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any and all X-Men, Mesmero.
Yeah, Jean Grey, White Queen, Dark Phoenix, the whole thing. For me, I don't know. 13th, quick question for you on this one. There's not a whole lot of telepaths in the DC universe. I mean,
Despero. There have been Despero stories
Despero, Jade, John Jones,
Starro.
I don't know. See, Starro's like a creature. There's not an out and out telepath like a Jean Grey style telepath. You know what I'm saying?
Saturn Girl, but
he's being mind controlled. He's got a giant starfish on his face.
Well, I'll tell you what, that would control me as well. To be fair,
there you go.
Man, I hate fish.
He always makes sure he's the star of the show. Too early.
Johnny likes nothing better than a starfish in the face.
Way, and that says something indeed. All right, okay. We're going to leave the double entendres away, and if you think what damn he's talking about, go Google it after the show. We're going to get into the first book. It is, as alluded to, I believe this is the 13th choice.
Yes.
Excuse me. It is a giant size Justice League of America, 143 or 143 from June 77. eBay, you can get this for around 15 to 20 pounds. Go Collect have a grade 9, historically sold for $55. Written by Steve Englehart, who I don't normally consider a Justice League writer. Yeah, Avengers and Batman, but Justice League. Dick Dillon and Frank McLaughlin are on art. Colors are by Anthony Collin. Apologies for no letter of credit. I don't have one. Sorry. I looked, but hey ho. 13, this is your book. Why don't you take it away, sir?
Yeah, kind of we were saying a couple of minutes ago with mind control stories. So just for the record, I absolutely hate mind control stories.
This was your suggestion.
It was, but I may hate it, but it is a part of a reality for comic books, and it's been done numerous times. So we can go down the list, forever and a lifetime of how many mind control stories there are in comics, whether it's one character or even a substance, like with Superman and Kryptonite, for example, or any other outside influences for mind control.
Did not even consider Superman and Kryptonite. God damn.
Yeah, magical spells and things like that. So we've seen this hundreds of times, but this book here represents one of the more obvious mind control stories that came to my mind immediately.
Uh-huh.
I think the big part of this book really is the cover. This is something that definitely grabbed attention for readers back then, where fans would wonder what would happen if Wonder Woman were to battle Superman. So that pretty much visually was answered in the cover,
Hmm.
and right away you're wondering like what the heck is going on. So when you start digging into the book, and right away you start thinking Steve Englehart, um, and we've all spoken with Steve Englehart at one point or another, but
Mhm.
and
A true gentleman of comic books.
Yes.
absolutely. And one thing that he aimed to do was when he went into this book was to introduce a friction within the lineup. And I think that that was very important because it does bring a sense of realism
Mm.
into a team that was, let's face it, it was always cookies and cream with them.
It's
You
Star
wait,
Trek Next Generation, isn't it? Nobody
yeah,
argues on the bridge on Star Trek Next
correct.
Generation. Yeah.
Nobody argues. They have an antagonist. They come together and figure out a way without any friction at all. Everybody is in agreement
Mm.
and they win the day. That was just your typical Justice League story. So Steve Englehart kind of flipped things around with introducing some friction. And let's face it, the elephants in the room, Superman, Wonder Woman, like these are, pillars of DC lore.
Mm.
And here you are in the first page, the splash panel was phenomenal. It's like you get that little introduction, you know who's going to be in the book. They're not wasting no time in telling you that something's going to happen in this issue. I do miss
Mm.
pages like this
Mm.
in comics
Agreed.
where it kind of gives you a little synopsis of
Mm.
like, yeah, I'm glad I spent the 60 cents on this huge comic book because this is going to get good. So you have Dick Dillon on art duties. I think and I'll get a touch on the story in a bit for Steve Englehart, but I think on the art duties, I think he did the job. There's some panels though. I was on a roller coaster ride with the art. Like some panels
Yeah.
are phenomenal, some of them are just like they could have been finished a little stronger. And then the
Mm.
one thing I saw was inconsistency. So
Mhm.
Massively.
even in like the first pages, you could see
Mm.
like Wonder Woman's face changing into like different women.
Her neckline always confuses me in this book.
Agreed,
There
100%.
was there was a couple of panels with her eye placement. While I was like, that is just not where they're supposed to be.
But are
Hmm.
you sure you're talking about Wonder Woman's eye placement and not your own, there, Professor?
No, I know exactly what I'm looking at.
Starfish.
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
Starro?
So the artwork, was inconsistent, but it did the job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that when it mattered most, I think that's when he stepped up and delivered the action sequences. Now, some of the limbs may look a little funny, the
Hmm.
poses and whatnot, but at the end of the day, you got the story you wanted. If that's what you woke up with saying, man, I wonder what happened if Superman battled Wonder Woman. So the premise of the story is pretty basic, where you have a villain called the Construct that just materializes out of nowhere
Hmm.
and mind controls not just Wonder Woman but members of the Injustice Gang. Um, the Injustice Gang was a favorite villain group of mine from back then because I'm like, I kind of view them as a masters of evil of the
Mm.
Justice League world. So I always knew there was going to be a good time with that. And so you get a lot of characters in this book. I think it was worth every penny, all 60 cents. For those of you who were lucky enough to get it back then at 60 cents. Um, it just did the job. It just kind of settled the question of how powerful is Wonder Woman? She
Mm.
was there from the beginning with Justice League. We knew that she was strong, but how strong? And I think this was DC's way of answering that question of she can bring it to Superman. And it
Mm.
wouldn't be the first time that we see this between the two,
Mm.
whether it's mind controlled or otherwise. Um, the amount of friction that Steve Englehart put into this was immediate. As soon as he stepped in, he introduced friction.
Mm.
So he was only in here, I think, about 4 issues, and already it wasn't just with Wonder Woman kind of being a little off the rails. It was the entire team. He took
Mm.
like their kind of like their most negative aspects of their personality and just said that's what we're gonna throw out in the four. And that's when you start seeing the characters really like starting to get on each other's nerves, which is
Yeah.
a natural thing for any team.
It. I just quick note on the art. it says in this text in this middle panel here, this one here, check the small of your back, and it's on her ass. It's like that's not the small of your back. I don't know what.
That's where Kim Kardashian got the idea from, to put a drink on and take a picture and stuff.
Yeah.
No, but overall, the book serves its purpose, and I think it's an important part of Justice League history, because this kind of, in a way, I feel like Steve Englehart was elevating Wonder Woman to the forefront, and then showing her that, she wasn't just your, regular member. She was definitely part of a team, and a very important piece at that.
Okay, cool. It's cool. I've got to say, I quite like the art. This is kind of right up my alley for this type of thing. Yes, it's inconsistent, but this era from about 140 onwards to about 180, I think Wonder Woman gets some good service across the line. Professor, what was your take on this book?
So I thought it was fun. When I first saw that this was written by Steve Englehart, my immediate thought was, oh, like a few years earlier, he was doing Avengers, and he was great on that team book. So I was expecting some big things reading this, and it was kind of funny because we contrast Marvel and DC in the 70s all the time with the different styles of writing, and it's interesting to compare and contrast the writing style of Steve Englehart at Marvel versus DC, the way he treated the characters. And here you see the characters, he tries to treat them as as the DC characters, but he is trying to inject some sort of maybe some like little soap opera elements and the relationships between the characters, and especially with he had a little fun with the villains, and it's like the Scarecrow and Poison Ivy team up, and I enjoyed all that. And what the thing I thought was cool was this was almost like the our theme for the show on steroids, where where the other books were just like one person being mind controlled, but here it's everybody, and even the bad guys. So the bad guys not necessarily would have been working together at this point, but the mind control is putting them all together. So I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. There was some of the characters like the privateer, like the former Manhunter. I did not know that was Mark Shaw. So that was.
Did anyone else?
Yeah. Oh,
in the book.
It was interesting. So and it was good to see like that kind of relationship between Superman and Batman, and Superman and Wonder Woman. And it was it's not something that I don't think they normally show. So
yeah, I think Steve Englehart, what he accomplished here was show you the fragility of the team chemistry, where there's a line in here, it said it only took a half hour or so for the team to split up because they were just on each other's throats.
Yeah, that's kind of where I felt like on Avengers they were always not a family, but they were able to have that conflict but settle it. And here in Justice League, it was like, oh, well, as soon as the chips are down, what are they going to walk away and quit? So that was interesting.
We have a phrase, don't we? We have a phrase, and the phrase is it's of its time. And this book, I think, mirrors that phrase perfectly. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, the art pretty much screams 70s DC. This book came out in, where's my notes? June 77. All right. So, yes, it screams that massively. The other thing is I like the angst that Englehart brings to the story between the characters and stuff. However, there's a great big massive plot hole the size of Jupiter in this book. And the plot hole is this: if the Construct can control Wonder Woman and then control the Injustice Gang to take on the Justice League, why didn't he just control the entire Justice League from the start?
They wanted them to suffer slowly.
I kind of thought that they were kind of a little subtly mind controlled.
I
thought they were being like a little touchy.
Manipulated.
Yeah, a little, like split up on purpose because the construct did it.
Okay.
I didn't think that they, that Green Arrow. Well, I know Green Arrow is just kind of a sensitive little baby, but not so sensitive as to walk out and then for Flash to agree and go with him. Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're all being my type.
I mean, I am being a bit harsh. I'm with you guys. I enjoyed reading this book. There's a lot of reading in it. I think this having Engelhardt in a book like this really helps DC because you get to see just how little DC actually cares about its female characters. It's funny because Wonder Woman in the dialogue, she says something like the lines of, I'm Wonder Woman. It's a Wonder Woman thing, not a woman's lib thing. I've been an original member. You treat me like I'm Snapper Carr. And then that got me thinking, because in the roll call, it says, and features Hawkgirl. Well, Hawkgirl is in it for one panel, practically. She looks great in it. But Canary, who's in Justice League for many, many issues, very rarely steps up to the plate and does anything other than go, oh, Ollie, be careful. And I think Engelhardt, by bringing Wonder Woman to the fore, is actually trying to redress the balance a little bit and say, you know what, some of these female characters are toe-to-toe with the male counterparts even. And the other issue, I suppose, with the book is that it just goes to show you what can happen when your characters are too powerful. You know, you've got like Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman on one side, Green Lantern in there as well, and on the other side you've got Green Arrow and Batman. Yeah, you're like, and you kind of don't see how that kind of works so well in stuff like this. If Wonder Woman and Superman really went toe to toe, there'd be like some proper shenanigans going on. It is an interesting idea. I mean, we've seen it in the Justice League cartoon. Done very well when the kind of mixed images, so you attack each other thinking each is a monster. The problem is you both characters have got to win. So I think
it's important to mention. I'm sorry, Johnny. I think it's important to mention too that after all of this turmoil within the book, that the team does realize that they need to be there for each other and figure a way to make it work regardless of how they feel. So they have to kind of be professionals and put that to bed and realize that that's not what they're there for. They're there for menaces and situations like the Injustice Gang, whether they intended to do something or not. There's always a threat out there, and they're in a satellite for a reason, so that they can respond to a threat to Earth. So they kind of put everything to the side and realize that that's more important than anything else.
True. I do love this last panel, although part of me does think, does that not just sort of like throw away everything that Wonder Woman's worked towards as being a strong character by herself? I don't know. But no, I suppose it has to be. Has to be done. So there you go. I thought it was an interesting read. Definitely, I like this era of Justice League. It's right up my street. So yeah, good call.
Muy bien.
And I think didn't either. And price wise, I don't think it's massively expensive. So I think this whole era of Justice League books tends not to be massively expensive. But hey ho, that's that one done and done. Right, before we get into the next one, which is an absolute doozy, it has to be said. Time for an advert for one of our other shows. Where shall we go? We did. See, there's not a lot in here. I'll tell you what. Let's check this one out. It is No Price Podcast. There it is, the No Prize Podcast for all you absolute Marvel fans, MCU, Disney Plus, featuring this guy. There you go.
And that guy.
Am I really there? I'm not there that often. I mean, the first 20 minutes, I have nothing to say. Yay!
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? All right, okay. So check that out. That drops the day before this show, so you'll have a new episode to check out. Keep you up to date with Loki amongst everything else, and the longest 2-minute one in this side of the NFL. Next up, then, is the Professor's Choice. It's gone for a range of books on this one. We are going to talk. We're going to talk about this beauty of a book. And you might look at that and go, "What, really?" And I'm like, "Yep, this is it. This is Fantastic Four number 279, written and drawn by John Byrne. Jerry Ordway's on there as embellisher. Glynis Oliver's there on colours, and John Workman is on letters. We're going to talk about this kind of like mini arc in this book. So it's 279, 280, 281. I found 279 to 283 for £15 on eBay. Mm-hmm. That's a good price. Respectively, this book goes 279 goes for around where we at $38.
Perfect.
280, yeah, this is on Gold Collect, and this is for grade 9.2. 280 goes for 65, and 281 goes for 34. Those are all annual sales. So there you go. So this is your book. You've chosen this, aka the Dark Sue Saga, I believe, is probably
Dark Sue. Yeah, we can call that. Yeah. This 279 is actually only the last couple of pages for this one is the beginning of the arc, which is 280, 281, and then wraps up in the pages of Secret Wars 2, number 2. So, but this is actually the last part of the Doctor Doom arc, where Doctor Doom really John Byrne used Doctor Doom like once a year in a 2 or 3 issue story arc. It was almost like one of those JLA Justice Society crossovers. You could count on Doctor Doom being in the book for once a year, right? Mm-hmm. And this is my favorite era of Fantastic Four, where the Thing had left the team and She-Hulk was on the team as the Muscle, and I absolutely love She-Hulk on the Fantastic Four more than I like the Avengers. I love John Byrne's art, the direction that he had on Fantastic Four. They just basically gave him the keys to the playground and said, "Go to town," and he did as much to not, I don't want to say he tried to imitate like Lee and Kirby, but he really kind of took their work down and kind of furthered it. I don't want to say one was better than the other, but I love the characterizations of all the characters in this book. It's very wordy, but
is it?
It is. Oh. It is, and so we were just talking about like the beginning of the book being the couple of pages of exposition to catch you up, maybe catch new readers up, and that's Reed's job in every single issue of Fantastic Four to recap exactly what's been going on in the storyline and catch everybody up.
Maybe that should be his name, Recap Richards.
I mean, if you've I read all 3 issues this morning, so reread for the 100th time, but yeah, every issue is kind of hilarious. This first half of this issue, they're trapped in space because Dr. Doom sent the Baxter building up into space and then blew it up. Mm-hmm. And the first half is Reed talking everybody down to save the team. And I'm sitting there turning the pages and I'm like, oh, we're like halfway through the book. And it's still, and every page reads like, okay, I'm teaching you how to use your powers and get us all, blow a hole in your force field like a helium balloon and send us in that direction. And then, Johnny can absorb the heat. And I'm like, okay. But it was fun. I mean, it was fun and dynamic, and Byrne sucks you in with his detail and his artwork. And, when they just showed She-Hulk crushing through the wall and just so many, I love that when the boulders and everything is so much detail. But anyway, that actually wasn't.
you could argue that John Byrne set up the Image guys this long ago.
Of
Because I mean,
course.
those Image guys were massively into detail. When I'm talking about this
Yeah.
long ago, this book came out in '85. So
Yeah.
you're talking a good 7 years before Image started, maybe.
Yeah. Now it was interesting because I when I looked back at 279 this morning on the Marvel Unlimited app, there's actually a disclaimer at the beginning of the book saying,
really?
saying that that this book was published in a different time, and it had depictions of hate and violence, and had words in it that shouldn't have been used. In fact, they're actually on the Marvel Unlimited app blacked out because there was the N word that was used heavily in the last couple pages of the book when they reintroduce Hate Monger, and he's riling up the crowd. And there's a priest that stands up and says, "What are you doing? You shouldn't, we have to love each other." And they start chanting bad words at him that should not be in print, and of course would not be in print in this day and age, but were back in 1985. So that actually came with a disclaimer, and it's a relatively new disclaimer, because when I read the book on Marvel Unlimited, just a couple of years ago, there was no disclaimer, and the words were not blacked out, but they are.
I don't think it should be blacked out. This is like, it's literature. You can't go back and start crossing out words out of Lady Chatterley's Lover because you don't like the word anymore. It's just bonkers.
Yeah. No, I mean, they black it out, everything except the first letter, so that what it says, but it's just like, okay, whatever. But I understand how people even today would get triggered reading a book from 35 years ago that says that. So
why are people getting triggered over a book from 35 years ago? Why didn't you just accept the fact it's from 35 years ago and deal with it?
it's because people are sensitive these days, John. Anyway,
obviously I'm not, it seems.
Right.
Anyway, so 280 is the one where it starts really kicking off, right?
280 is where you get Malice shows up and basically dismantles She-Hulk, and to any regular reader, it's not. I mean, that panel you might not be able to tell, but by the next page, when she's just kicking the crap out of She-Hulk, we're all like, okay, this is Invisible Girl, right? And it's just a different way of her using the powers, where she's just basically unleashed, right? She's basically powers turned up to 11. She's not restraining herself or limited by whatever limits that had been imposed upon her at the time. There were a couple of things, and of course we realized Malice, Invisible Girl, she's being mind controlled by Psycho Man, right? Psycho Man and Hate Monger, and that is actually, the arc doesn't end in what we had reviewed here. There actually is another issue where they actually go to the microverse to fight Psycho Man, and there is actually, this is the reason why I picked this book, is because this book has lasting change for Sue Richards. She drops the Invisible Girl name and becomes the Invisible Woman at the end of this arc, and these changes to the limitations of her powers are gone. She's the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, and they show it in this issue. She can, yep. She takes out She-Hulk, no problem. She can take out the rest of them. When she fights Reed in the next issue, she destroys Reed. And the only reason they beat her is another maybe problem that people might have with this book is Reed smacks the crap out of her and basically gets her so mad that she breaks.
She burns all the hate up, doesn't she?
Yeah,
I think it's a good call. And 13th, you can kind of jump in on this one as well. We all know that there's been fractions and fractures between Reed and Sue for years.
Mhm.
You know, John Byrne was the person who instigated this whole idea that the two could get divorced. You know, Sue left him for a while whilst he got his head out of the science book. So it's good that I think that John Byrne has actually then gone back to sort of like revisit that. So this isn't just like turning Sue Richards evil for the sake of being evil. There's actually some really good character keys in the relationship between Reed and Sue
Yeah.
that Byrne builds on to create this malice. It's not just sexing her up for the sense of it. It is actual, honest to goodness, she hates him for the things that he's put them through as a
Right.
couple and as a family. Correct?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that it's always about a big picture scenario. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Where with Stan Lee and Kirby back in the days, it was always insinuated like either it's a science book or me. Which one is it going to be? So, you know, Reed's try to have his cake and eat it too. Then when you have these adventures through time, you know, you have other members as in the Torch and Thing and She-Hulk later on. You know, there's different situations where Reed comes to the forefront, and right away he's the Superman of their group, always solving everything and saving everyone or finding a way to.
Is he
Got
though?
he's like the director. You know,
Is
do
he
this, do that.
though?
So
See, I mean, Professor, it's just been a case of he's never sorted Ben out, has he? He couldn't solve the torch recently. He
Yep.
doesn't know what to do with cosmic rays. He's absolutely useless with the damn things.
He's the alpha male though. He's the alpha of the group. What he says goes, and he's ego driven more than anything. There's makes sense that his antithesis is the Doctor Doom because they're really way more alike than
that's right.
not alike, right? So they explored this too in the Ultimate Universe when they turned Reed into the Maker, right? So in the Ultimate Universe, Reed's the biggest villain in there. So it's interesting to see the different aspects that Reed can have. And yeah, I don't particularly think Reed is a very likable character, and I wonder half the time why Sue's with him and why she hasn't gone with Namor, to be totally honest. And Namor's just as bad. So
what I was going to say too earlier is that each member has had a pretty intense focus on them at some point or another, right? So we just spoke about Reed, the Torch. You know, he was in a lot of other books. He had his own thing going, and Marvel Team Up here and there, his own little series. The Thing had his own series. He left to see if he was a standalone guy or not. Maybe doing one. Where was the focus on Sue Storm? There really wasn't a focus.
no.
And I think that's where John Byrne excelled. So about John Byrne, his writing and art, it just goes to show you that in the pages of the X-Men, you know, he did a phenomenal job there. Now he comes to another pretty much premiere book with Fantastic Four and really like puts a strong foundation for them and focuses on each character, plus bringing She-Hulk.
Yep.
So not only does the script support that strong idea, the art complements it as well. I think his strongest art out of this arc for the Malice storyline was in 280, because we all know how great his art is, but I just think that the way that he focuses up close and then far away, even with the battle with She-Hulk and Malice, I think that was phenomenal when she's launching her up in the air, and then using her her force bubble to kind of suffocate the She-Hulk. Just really shows you how much damage that Sue Storm really can bring to anyone. I almost felt like it's that trope of like, oh, when Superman fights someone, he should just punch them into space. I think this is just as good as that, where you know how many people she could beat just with that. So I mean, it just shows you how mischievous she could be if she wanted to be. So she has to keep that under control because she is that powerful. But
Yeah.
I really believe the artwork in 280 and then the first few pages of 281 is really Byrne at his best, at his wheelhouse. And I really think that he did a phenomenal job with the Fantastic Four, not just this arc, but his entire run. He really put his fingerprint on the Fantastic Four for years.
Well, for forever, I think. It
Yeah.
was the best run next to Lee and Kirby.
Yeah, I agree. I can't disagree with that at all.
No, I agree. I think the Fantastic Four under Burns tutelage is absolutely spot on. Couple of things just to consider from my point of view. I agree with you. I prefer the She-Hulk as a Fantastic Four member as I do Avengers. Do I prefer it better than Ben? Maybe.
Here's the thing. She would be my closest second choice to the Thing, because I love the Thing. I would like, I would love if they just ignored the Fantastic Four name and just kept her on the team and had 5 members.
I agree with you guys. I think the Thing is definitely, a very, very important part to Fantastic Four, but the She-Hulk functioned better here than in Avengers for sure. So it depends on what lens you look at it through. If you're looking at just strictly from She-Hulk, where does she function better here, part of the Avengers, or even in her own book? So,
but I mean, it's all Byrne. I mean, I don't think she would belong. When you read a Fantastic Four book that didn't have Byrne on it but had She-Hulk in it, it wasn't the same.
Yeah. I would say this. I'm going to be argumentative on this. I actually think She-Hulk suits the Fantastic Four and Ben suits the Avengers. Yeah. I like Ben as a new Avenger. I know it's outside of our remit. The other thing that I would say about the whole Malice thing is I cracked the joke earlier about it being the Dark Sue saga, and when I read this book, and I must admit I hadn't read it for absolute years. I'm going through this book, and it struck me for the first time in ages the similarities between this and the Dark Phoenix saga, especially the first few issues of that, where Jean's getting seduced into the Hellfire Club, right?
Yeah.
Makes me wonder how much of that run was Claremont and how much of that run is Byrne. Because we always say that Claremont was a wordsmith and writes dialogue like it's running out of fashion. And yet one of the first things we said about this 279 especially is that it's wordy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of thinking, has Byrne adopted this to kind of, because he knows that that's what X-Men fans like, so therefore he's trying to homage that style a little bit to kind of add some gravitas to things? Or was it just the case that that's how it always was? I don't know.
This is endemic of Marvel in the 80s as a whole. Most of the writers were very, very wordy, very expository. The first few pages of each issue was a recap of what happened before to catch up new readers. But yeah, I mean, you could pick up, even through Mark Grunwald's whole run on Cap was very wordy. This is very wordy. Anything Marv Wolfman on Teen Titans was super wordy.
I get that. Maybe I'm seeing conspiracy where there isn't any. The other thing that I would point out is that as much as I love John Byrne's art in this book, and Malice, I will say now, looks great. Do you think Reed every now and then again says, Sue, how about some Malice, hubba hubba? You know, she's got it going on. And that
might be a stretch machine.
Really? Hot stuff. Oh, that's it, brother. All right, okay.
Here's the
thing. When John Byrne took on the Fantastic Four, he relaxed the superhero dynamic a little bit, and they became a little bit more languid, and not as straight cut, 6 abs and all that sort of stuff as other superheroes. And that includes the women in the book. I find it hard to think that Sue went from dowdy superhero heroine with practically no shape to a costume whatsoever to this busty leggy young thing next over here. That's like, I mean, I know you're drawn bad, but it's that Jessica Rabbit thing, isn't it? I'm not bad, I'm just drawn bad.
She's found a different way to use her force fields.
Actually, yeah.
Hey, remember back in that time, it was good to be bad. So that was another thing too. And also for those that were like, Sue Storm would never willingly do this. Well, that's the benefit of the mind control trope, where you can kind of use that as a way to kind of get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I don't see that. I think I get that there is elements of mind control, of course there is. But as I said before, I think it's just brought out that kind of
something was there already.
Yeah, that long-held seed that's kind of like coloured the relationships. I've got to say, for the money that it is, what did I say it was over here in the UK? What, 15?
Like £15.
Where's that?
Yeah.
£15 to get 5 issues, which include this storyline. For me, I'm dropping that any time of the week, and I don't particularly care about the grade. The reader books.
Can't go wrong with Byrne's Fantastic Four. You just
exactly.
No, you can't. You can't.
And you just think you can do without the edit as well.
Yeah, you can tell, like in the panels with the She-Hulk, how there's that running joke where everybody has the same face in John Byrne's universe, but with She-Hulk, that's not true. You can tell just like how much care and thought, like that was his character, even though he didn't create her. That was his character, his baby.
Yep.
And you can see it in every panel with She-Hulk.
I think that about all these books. I think that about Fantastic Four 13. I think when I think Fantastic Four, I think of Kirby and I think of Byrne. And that's it. That's where it stops for me.
Yeah, I agree.
So crazy. All right, cool. All right, last book. It's my book, and Professor's probably going to give me grief for picking it because it's a bad book.
No, I actually like this.
Good, excellent. So this is Batman 339, September 81. You can get this anywhere between £5 and £15 on eBay. Go collect, has a high grade at $17. It's not an expensive book, and it's from an era of Batman that wasn't particularly high on anyone's kind of radar. Written by Jerry Conway, art by, I think, the massively understated and underappreciated Irv Novick, with Steve Mitchell on probably inks. Ben Orders on letters, and Adrian Roy, who is the colorist. This is, for me, one of my favorite eras of Batman. The whole, he's moved out of the cave. He's living in the mansion. He's living on his penthouse. Bruce Wayne's becoming more of a figure, not just Batman. The Arthur Reeves stuff's starting to kick in, and the shape of Gotham's political status is changing. There's a lot to love about this. Irv Novick's art is quite languid. It's nice and stretched out. I always think Jim Aparo gets the high praise, and he should, because Aparo's absolutely fantastic. Here's the thing. Aparo was on Brave and Bold when Novick was on this, and Aparo stayed on Batman and Detective well into the 90s. So DC have kept that same art style for Batman for that length of time. It's crazy when you think about how much art changes in comic books. So this is pretty much a day in the life of Bruce Wayne. Shades of the Dark Knight where he falls asleep in the meeting. Bearing in mind it's so much earlier than this. There's a random girl comes along and plants. Don't you just hate it when you're out for coffee and some random girl kisses you? No, I don't. Not that it ever happens. And of course, everyone's like, "Oh, what's going on?" Whatever. Find out that it's Poison Ivy in disguise. Shades of lipstick, Batman. And of course, she's infected Bruce with her killer kiss, and therefore, by de facto nature, she's also affected Batman, which is, you buy one, you get one free, everybody. And it's kind of see how Batman deals with that as he moves forward. Manages to get enough sense to change back into Bruce so he can kind of work out what's going on. But for me, it's this whole double jeopardy thing, isn't it? Because you get Bruce under mind control, but you also then get Batman, which is kind of like the real risk, isn't it? You're like, oh no, she's controlling Batman, but she doesn't know she's controlling Batman. Oh my God. It's a storyline that lasts a few issues, to be fair. I'm not going to go through all the issues in this, but I think this is just pure fun Batman of its time, and I think it absolutely works. A second appearance of Poison Ivy on the pod. I kind of like this version of Poison Ivy. I'm not a big fan of the superpowered Ivy that we've got recently, but then I kind of like Batman's villains being not superpowered because it's Batman. But no, I think the book really works well. It has every Batman trope you want in there. The handy utility belt that has everything in it, including pesticide. No, I really like it. I read things reading this book. I had a grin from ear to ear, so I was really pleased. glad I chose this book. I actually own this book as well, which is always a good thing. 13th, what was your take on good old Bat 339?
I agree with you on the art. Irv Novick is definitely one of those that you don't mention him all the time, and
Mm,
I honestly think he should get more credit than he deserves. Definitely a solid era for Batman art wise. Really,
mm,
the whole '70s and throughout was solid art, right? We're going
mm.
stemming from Neil Adams and onward.
Like holding
So
down the fort is what I
yeah,
call it.
literally.
You know what? That's not a bad way of saying it, actually, Professor. I kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you that one. Yeah, definitely.
Right, right. So big shoes to fill, but also it was accomplished. So Batman was a benefit of strong art. Also, we got to remember that Batman sales were not at its strongest either. So you had to do
Mm,
something to bring some attention to Batman, especially with multiple titles back then.
hmm.
Back then, the suffering was, oh, it's two titles. That's one too many.
Yeah,
How's that working out today? But
yeah.
anyways,
Detective was almost cancelled, wasn't it?
correct.
Mhm.
Correct. So
It was
today
the.
it's like that problem's been magnified by at least
Mhm,
13 times, I would say. Um, story wise, yeah, I agree. It's once you know that it's a mind control story and who else but Poison Ivy, there's not many Batman villains that have that ability or means to do it. Like Mad Hatter is another one that I
mm.
could think of, and things like that. But Poison Ivy is another one. I was baffled by Batman swinging in Gotham, trying to get home to take a shower, and he's blinded by sunlight and almost misses the roof. And I'm like, wait, he's not mind controlled yet.
I know,
So
yes, it's just because Bruce is becoming more of a player in his own company, and I think it's because he is burning the candle at both ends. Is he
yeah,
Batman?
and
Is he Bruce? Or is he Bruce? And you know.
right, and that's been explored like forever with Batman, and
Hmm.
that was very evident with Nightfall.
Mhm.
For those of us that
Mm,
remember that story where Batman was literally led to the brink of exhaustion.
yep.
So this is no different with him struggling with his daytime job and his job at night as Batman. But it was a solid story. It's not the best Poison Ivy story I've ever read, but
Mm,
this is Poison Ivy in her pretty much original kind of format, for lack of better words. You
hmm.
know, her typical MO, always up to something and using her plans or her knowledge of plans to achieve her, you know, whatever end she wanted to meet. But good story overall.
Cool. Cool. Professor.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have pretty much said everything on it. I mean, the tropes are throughout this book. I mean, the poison ivy with the mind control lipstick, and of course that when Batman pulls out the defoliant on out of his utility belt, I was like, wow, how many times can I count that he's actually used the utility belt and had something he needed? Because you see it all the time in the '60s, but I mean on the TV show,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
in this utility belt on the comic, I almost never see him pull something out of his belt. So I thought that was really cool. Um,
yeah.
and the fact that this is just the first part of what you said, like a three-parter, so nothing's wrapped up in this. It's just oh, hey, Batman's mind controlled now. So
Yeah, it leads places, doesn't it? Because there is this element. Then there's the Arthur Reeves stuff. Then there's the Boss Thorne stuff over in Detective with
yeah,
John Newton. Jerry Conway at the time was writing both books, so there was a sense
yeah,
of continuity between Batman and Detective, which
yeah.
I think helps
And
the.
yeah, your comments on the art were spot on too, because when I first looked at this, I was like, I had to go back and say, who is this guy? And I was like,
Mm,
oh, Irv Novick. And then because I was like, is this a Paro? And I was
no,
like, and then I looked at the cover and I'm like, well, Rich Buckler did the cover. Did you do the interior?
cover's gorgeous.
Yeah.
The cover is gorgeous.
So
I was always surprised. This era always confused me as a kid of why is there a tree growing in the middle of a office building? Never understood that. Even now, it still baffles my brain. Crazy.
Is it an homage to a tree grows in Brooklyn? Now a tree grows in Gotham.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
And
we should
doesn't like
find.
the lipstick with poison ivy, like I couldn't help but think of like all those Cindy Crawford commercials I watched growing up with lipstick. And then in this book, Poison Ivy's advertising and calling it our secret. I
Oh,
was I was like, okay, makes you wonder. And like using the makeup as a means to mind control isn't anything new. We've seen that in movies and things like that. So
Wasn't Cindy Crawford like a Dreamcast for Poison Ivy like a million years ago?
I want to say so. That's probably where I'm pulling it from.
Yeah, I think before Uma Thurman ever got the job, I think when everybody was fan casting Poison Ivy as a villain, Cindy Crawford always came up.
I always felt like when it came to Poison Ivy stories that it was kind of stuck, right? It like there wasn't anything else to do with her other than mind control stories or have her running around with Injustice Gang or Injustice League members and trying to do bank heists.
Well, maybe that's why they changed it up and gave her the superpowers. Obviously, Ivy's a massive character for the LGBTQ community right now, and has been for a while with her and Hals. So I know she's more than a one-trick pony now for sure. But to be fair, I think we could say that. And I hate saying this because I love Batman, but I sometimes think you can get that like one-trick pony thing with pretty much all of the Batman villains. You know, how many buildings have a number 2 in it? Yeah. How many times is it like, oh, he's on Janus Street? Oh, yeah. He's hiding out in the duplex. Oh, you know.
It's an enigma.
Yeah. How many penguin crimes are there? How many cat crimes are there? Oh God.
That's what makes Batman fun.
Yeah, it
Come
is.
on.
It is. I totally get it, but I just think you could label that at especially this era of Batman.
Yeah.
You know? I think it's when they start changing up and bringing Boss Thorne into it as a kind of like a legitimate kind of gangster that can hold his own, things get a bit better.
That's another Steve Englehart era of Batman.
Yeah, so I think the whole element thing goes on like that brilliantly. So I don't know.
Definitely
I suppose
this story on us.
I mean, at least I don't know. Spider-Man's villains always seem to be trying different things, even if it is all about killing the spider.
Yeah, like Dr. Octopus marrying on May.
Enough said. Enough said.
Next on Ol'Timers podcast.
Yeah.
No mind control there.
Villains marrying Ol'Timers.
Oh, if that's the case, can I pick my villain? I'd like to marry Malice, please.
Oh, hey.
What can I say?
She doesn't have fishnets, though. Imagine if she did.
Wow. Even better.
I smell a redesign coming.
Hey, where is my pad and paper? All right, there you go.
Bubble machine.
Sorry?
She'll burst your bubble.
I don't mind. What way to go? On that note, we are done for another show. Professor, don't forget to check out UCPN for your favorite shows.
Oh, hey, No Price Podcast, all about the MCU, Disney Plus, and hey, we managed to sneak in some comics.
Who'd have thunk that, eh?
Sometimes protest. Sorry.
13.
And don't forget to check out the Definitive Crusade, of course, which totally focuses on DC comic books of now, not yesteryear, of now.
There you go. And of course, if you like things Kickstarter and new indie stuff, don't forget to check out Outside the Panels for all the interviews and so on. There you go. It's short on the show by normal, not by much, but it's because Professor's off to Rhode Island. Comic Con to schmooze with the crew.
I'll tell you who I had dinner with last night.
Go on then. Who did you
Don McGregor, my buddy, and Jim Salakrip, and I met a guy, Bob Cook, who worked for Hanna-Barbera and Filmation and worked on the original Scooby-Doo and He-Man, and it was really interesting. I got to go visit him today. Talk more.
Cool. Well, get him on the show. Invite them all on. We can have these conversations.
Use mind control, Professor.
Yeah. This is the pod you'd like to be on. I'm smoozing next week. I'll have you know I'm off to Thought Bubble in the UK. I'll be hanging out. Jason Aaron is going to be there.
Okay, that'll be great. His Thor run was epic. Yes, I will.
His Avengers run was not so much.
His Thor run was epic.
I think the other guy you like's there as well, Al Ewing. I think Al Ewing's going to be there.
I enjoy Al Ewing very much. So please talk to him. Get him on Outside the Panels.
I will try my best. All right, guys, that's it. We're done and done. As I said earlier, don't forget to check out UCPN. I, as always, have been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. It's that time. Where was my outie? I can't find it. There it is. Adios.